the session here. We'll start it virtually because we have one speaker who will address us online. And that is Ms. Anna Brandt, chairperson of the IPDC Bureau in Sweden, from Sweden. And as I said, the panel is organized together with the IPDC. Please turn on the video. I hear the voice, but again, if somebody doesn't see the screen very well, please move forward.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to participate in the 2022 celebration of the International Day for Universal Access to Information in Tashkent, which is addressing present-day concerns on artificial intelligence and governance and access to information. Artificial intelligence and e-governance can play, and already plays, an important role in bridging the digital divide by supporting citizens' access to tailor-made, timely, and accessible information. This is especially needed today, considering the massive flow of information we are exposed to. Similarly, making government services digital enhances transparency and accessibility. As chairperson of the Intergovernmental Council of the International Programme for the Development of Communication, I am proud to open the panel which will present the UNESCO Global Report on the implementation of access to information laws. You will also discuss the UNESCO Annual Survey on SDG Indicator 16.10.2, which provided data for the report. The latest survey took place from April to May 2022, to which 123 countries and territories responded, while in 2021 the number of respondents was 102. We're delighted to see this substantial increase in responses. The UNESCO report highlights the latest trends related to access to information and provides an important platform for best practice and conclusions on how to proceed with normative work to support the right to access to information. At the same time, it provides guidance on how to integrate the impact of digitalization and AI on access to information. The findings from 2022 report show a steady increase of countries and territories having constitutional, statutory, and policy guarantees for access to information. These guarantees primarily include an oversight body and a requirement for the public body to appoint officers handling access to information issues. The oversight body is typically a national one in almost half of the cases. The body takes the form of an information commission or commissioner. Tracking progress on access to information in 2021-22 through legal guarantees and their implementation, with a particular focus on the mandates, sustainability, and activities of national oversight institutions, point to a broader recognition of the role of access to information as a critical component in rebuilding communities and strengthening their public institutions. The findings also point to practices which provide mutual reinforcement of the right to access information and the right to privacy, whenever protecting privacy allows for maximizing access to information. Reporting on SDG 16.10.2 serves as an incentive for countries to improve their legal and regulatory frameworks, as well as their implementation and enforcement of access to information. In this regard, the UNESCO survey has also proven helpful for countries in preparing their voluntary national reviews and access to information-related issues within the Universal Periodic Review process. Monitoring access to information allows UNESCO to focus on marginalized groups and the need for improvement of their access to information. As an example, UNESCO and the Carter Center published a report, promoting gender equity in the right of access to information. It demonstrates that access to information in many places remains elusive for half of the world's population, women. The report suggests way forward to promote gender-sensitive right to information laws and policies and to advocate for gender-sensitive access to information practices. Examples of both are provided in the report. UNESCO's other research focuses on access to information laws as a guarantee for inclusion and disability rights. Findings of the research call for mandatory accessibility standards for persons with disabilities to be included in the access to information legislative framework. Such standards are the first step in ensuring the availability of public information in accessible formats, online and offline. The research paper provided ample good practice in this area of policymaking. With only 8 years left to achieve the SDGs and global challenges becoming more interconnected, the message of the report is clear. Access to information should be the link that binds together diverse actions in developing communities and strengthens public institutions towards 2030 and beyond. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all great discussions.
No, one of the driving forces behind this event.
We should have Spanish interpretation, and we only have French interpretation.
All right, good to know. Jaco, please take the floor. I hope it works. If it doesn't work, just take my seat.
Good morning to everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity also to further elaborate on UNESCO's access to information exercise that happens every year. So as the chairperson of the IPDC mentioned, UNESCO carries out every year a survey on SDG 16.10.2 that tracks the progress on the number of countries that adopt and implement constitutional, statutory, or policy guarantees for public access to information. If I can have my presentation, please. This exercise has been carried out for 3 years now. And we are very proud also to know that we have an increase of the number of countries that participate in this exercise. This can only happen in working together with other institutions, and we're very happy that the SDG 16 Hub is one of our main partners to reach out to the different information commissioners and SDG focal points, specifically in Asia and the Pacific. But this can also not happen if we do not work with the ICIC, the International Conference on Information Commissioners, and other networks that mobilize information commissioners in order to take part in this exercise. We will also have interventions of those information commissioners that took part in this year's exercise. And I think on behalf of UNESCO, I would like to thank all those information commissioners that provided the data that enable us to have 123 countries participating in this exercise. I don't know if I can have my slides, please. This said, I think the chairperson of IPDC highlighted some of the key takeaways of this year's report. An increase of the number of countries that report on access to information and its implementation. Data on SDG 16 is extremely important, not only to show some progress as it relates to SDG 16, but also as it relates to other SDGs. As the IPDC chairperson mentioned, you can link access to information to gender, to inclusion, even to elements related to environment. So this year's report is in its final stages of being edited. It will be entitled A Steady Path Forward UNESCO 2022 report on public access to information. And the report, a short version of it, will be presented at the IPDC Council that takes place in November this year. The final long report that includes also some case studies at a regional basis, at a national basis, but also on thematic areas, will be ready hopefully in October. Finally, let me just reiterate the importance of some of the trends that we have acknowledged in this report, the increase of the number of the access to information laws, but it shows that we still have some work to do in order to reach 193 UNESCO member states. We also realized that not all countries have independent oversight institutions, and this is a very important element that needs to be highlighted within the laws. So there is also some work to be done in terms of this element. Also, I think when we looked at this year's report, we realized that while it is self-evaluation of 8 questions, there's still a lot of data that is not collected by information commissioners. The data that we received on the granting of information requests, for example, are not really adequate in order to make substantial recommendations on how access to information requests are treated. And I think some work is still to be done in order to keep the data that could help us to track the progress. Finally, a big thank you for all of those that are part of this exercise, and we look forward also to your insights in terms of collecting the data, but also some of the challenges that you experience in order to track access to information laws and its implementation. Thank you very much.
Well, like it happens in virtual conferences, we have first sound and then visual image of the person talking. So it's like here, I'm sorry about the slides that didn't appear on the screen. And for our technical assistants, для наших технических помощников мы будем идти по программе, так как она напечатана в буклете.
For our technical assistants, I would like to mention that the presentation will be played in the order they appear in the agenda.
And we will go according to the schedule from now on. Our next speaker is coming from Hungary, Julia Sziklay. Dr. Julia Sziklay started a lawyer and politologist. She started to work for the Office of Data Protection and Freedom of Information Commissioner as early as 1995. So for quite a huge experience. Currently, she's the head of the Freedom of Information Department at the National Authority for Data Protection and Freedom of Information. And she also an expert project manager of the National Freedom of Information Research Project, which took place in 2019 and still continues. She teaches at a university in Budapest, and she's author of a number of publications related to the topic of our today's discussion. Dr. Siklay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And by the way, we took part in the UNESCO survey and we got a very elegant ranking scores. So, so my slides, please. Because I need it. So I was asked by Marius to speak about our freedom of information research. It's still an ongoing project, but I need my slides. Yes. It doesn't move. Yes. So very shortly, this research project is generously supported by the EU, and yeah, the number in euro is wrong. It's 1 million euro. So please. And the aim of the project was to review the practical implementation of the freedom of information landscape and regime in Hungary. So it concentrates on the practical side. What was the content? Of course, to identify the problems and obstacles and to make proposals for the correction and development. So very quickly. So here are just some guides and recommendations which are going to be published by the end of the project. Very important for us was, for example, the guide on the publication of environmental data. This is going to be a detailed publication where NGOs and citizens interested in the subject may find all the information where to find public data on the environmental field. So 4 target groups were selected. The first one is the entities of the local publicity. Darren was very surprised that although a small country, we have more than 3,000 municipalities, but it's like that. And we have a special system of national minority self-governments. Second target group was, of course, the central public administration. The third one was a very exciting one, because it covers all entities beyond public administration, but operating with public money, with public finances, and or performing public functions like public service providers or companies in public ownership or any private entity which has to do with spending of public money. And the third group was a horizontal scope. It aims to correction mechanisms, including legal instruments, acts, and including all the institutions which have to do with the legal remedies, like our institution or the courts, constitutional court. So what are the research methods? Of course, desktop analysis, website analysis, and we are very proud to say that on the local level, we were able to cover all the local municipalities operating in Hungary, requesting data. So these were test data requests coming at one time, and uniform questions were sent out to the target groups of 6 questions, and it caused a national uprising in the country. So at the end, we were just we had to issue a communication that please just calm down. It's not an attack, an organized hacker attack against your IT security and so on. Online questionnaire survey to explore the own experiences of the obligated entities, in-depth interviews focused on those persons who have everyday work with freedom of information requests and disclosure lists, focus group interviews, and other research elements such as working group professional events, and also international benchmarks. So within the framework of this project, 6 countries were selected with outstanding freedom of information practice, and 3 countries we were able to visit personally as a delegation. And these 3 countries were Estonia, Mexico, and Scotland. From Estonia, we brought the message how digitalization is very important. The Scottish colleague said that the Estonians are obsessed by digitalization, but it's really true. We have seen it, yeah. We have seen it in our eyes how the open documentation system works. So within 1 day, when a document arrives to a public authority after some steps of anonymization and so on, that document is put on the website of the within 1 day. Yeah, from Mexico, we brought many experiences with ourselves. The National Transparency Platform is a huge platform operating with millions of data, and it's functioning very well. And the importance of the evaluation through indicators. And we were very envying that in the evaluation directorate, there are 25 colleagues working just on controlling the disclosure of public data. And from Scotland, of course, the message was how important the general attitude of the culture of compliance. So if a Scottish commissioner says something or orders something, there is no dispute. It has to be followed, that it has to be fulfilled. So not even in one case was his decision challenged by the public authorities, which is something very surprising for us. So you can see here on the first target group, the survey was complete and comprehensive. On the side of the Central Public Administration, some 155 bodies were selected. And on the side of the third target group, since there are existing thousands of such entities, thousands were selected as representative sample. The test data request, as I said, 6 questions were sent out at one time, and these were easy to answer questions like the link to internal regulations concerning freedom of information data requests, or the contact details of the freedom of information person or officer. But there were some more difficult ones like contracts, and the main data of these contracts, like outsourcing public services, or in the third group, the salary of the head of the organization, which also caused some kind of nervousness. So here you can see what was done in numbers. So here are the questions for the public administration. As you can see, list of procurements free of public procurements obligations, which is a very tricky area in Hungary, or the relevant special and single publication schemes. We operate with 3 publication schemes: the general one, the special one, and the single one. So I brought just some examples of charts. Hundreds were produced throughout the project. And Marius warned me not to speak only about the sunny side of the project. So now the dark results come. About the findings, 31% of the municipalities does not publish public data at all, although they were obligated to do it. And I'm just jumping with the slides. And place of the publication, content. It was our presumption that among the categories, the financial data will be the problematic area, but not. It turned out that it's the operational data where they mostly face difficulties. Test data requests. So you can see question number 4 is about that environmental report, which the municipalities are obliged to issue each year, and they of course fail to do it. They don't. Sometimes they don't even know that they have this kind of obligation. So the attitudes of the self-governments, which is a very positive, it's quite not very, it's quite a positive result, that when we ask what is your attitude to transparency, to openness, they are more or less positive. So they are not rejecting these things, but lack of awareness, lack of human resources and etc. They are not fulfilling their obligations in the practice so well. Because of the completeness of the survey on for the first target group, we were able to make a ranking among all the municipalities of Hungary, and upon the results, 5 categories were made, and by the end of the project, each and every municipality will find its name on this list. And yesterday, we just published the best 14 exemplary municipalities, just as a good best practice example for the others. So this is the distribution of index points by category. Here you can see that it's mostly the small regions, the small municipalities which have poorer results, but it's not always the case. So it has already proved that it's not always the size or the human resources capacity of the municipality which can be counted on. And some other results, it's not there because I wanted to be very quick. On the side of the central government, 68% publish public data according to the Act. So this result is much better than before. But only 3% of the public administration bodies responded fully and perfectly to the data requests, which is something which shall be improved, this kind of result. And speaking of the third category, these tricky ones, so public entities and private companies performing some kind of public duty, 63% does not publish public data at all, and 8% fulfill the data requests perfectly. So as a conclusion, I can say that UNESCO states, of course, that as far as I know, that what cannot be measured cannot be improved. But I would rather say that if you have the occasion and opportunity to measure the practical side and the practical implementation of freedom of information in your country, then you would be able to target and to initiate targeted improvement steps, and that will be something to count with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think the research that you did in Hungary will be a good template also for research in other countries of the world. And I hope that the report itself can be shared and can be made available to every participant. As a footnote also, I don't represent UNESCO, but I think UNESCO would not approve you calling Scotland a country. Or make it as a sign of supporting or approving the processes going on in the United Kingdom. But let's call it a territory so far, okay? It is a country. It's a country which is not independent. It does. This I don't argue about. But if we call it non-independent country, I don't think it's a good point also. Well, we go from one lawyer to another. Meanwhile, and I would like to present Mr. Adnan Lassoud, who is acting. Are you third one? All right. Not according to my program. Well, I'm sorry. Can you do it now? I'll say a few words about you while you prepare, all right? Okay. So Mr. Adnan Lassoud is an acting president at the moment, right? Yes, of the Access to Information Authority in Tunisia. As I said, he's a lawyer and he held a number of senior positions, such as president of the Unit of Studies at the Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Ministry of Justice of the country. That was in 2012, 10 years ago. And later, the post of president of the chamber at the Court of Appeal of Nabil, and Attorney General at the General Prosecutor's Office of Criminal Services at the Ministry of Justice. So I would like to give you the floor, and I hope that the slides are not too much delayed for Mr. Lassoud. You have them? No. Okay. And you will speak in French, by the way, right?
Speak in French.
Yeah. So I guess we have French translation. Please, if you don't understand French, please put on your earphones as well. Shall we begin? Please.
En français.
I will deliver my speech in French and addressing to you, Your Excellency, Mr. Moderator. I will deliver my speech on French. I will not be speaking too fast, so I will give a time for our translators for them to be able to translate my speech the proper way. Actually, I will be, this is the reason why I have not prepared my presentation, because my slides would be on French, and of course, since it will not be understandable for my colleagues who are not French speakers. Mr. Moderator, please kindly be advised on this detail, and please kindly control the time which my speech will consume. It is my pleasure to join you at this prestigious international event on artificial intelligence, electronic governance, and information access, which have been impressively organized by UNESCO on occasion of International Day of Universal Access to Information 2022. And I am very honored to be invited to take part in this conference as a representative from Tunisia, from the perspective of a chairman of court body ensuring access to information within these 3 years. And the topic of this conference is very relevant in Tunisia, especially considering the recent developments all across the world. And this topic is very important for me personally, especially considering that the same topic has been selected in Tunisia for the international conference, which has been dedicated to National Day of Tunisia on universal access to information, which we celebrate on 24th of March on yearly basis. And so in 2016, the law on universal access to information has been adopted. So we have 2 major events in Tunisia. So it's International Day of Universal Day of Access to Information, and the second day, which is annual event. Also, it is held on 24th of March, which
à toute la famille de
I have mentioned, I mean, on universal access of information, on the occasion of law on universal access to information, which has been adopted in Tunisia in 2016. I am very thankful to all the UNESCO family, both in Tunisia and in France, so that I can deliver my speech today in front of you on the occasion of the International Day of Universal Access to Information. So let me begin with drawing your attention to how important for us is freedom of speech, and how we should protect freedoms and rights of people, rights to know, which is closely related to the law on access to information. This opinion is shared with everyone shared this opinion in Tunisia, and of course this law on access to information, on the right to know, which have been adopted in 2016, which I have already mentioned. So the article first of this law stipulate all of these issues which I have been raising to the floor. So implementation of this law on the right to access to information, this law has been enacted 1 year after it was after a public hearing were ended on this law, and of course our entity, I mean in Tunisia, we would like to know that the access to, we would like to mention that the access to information in our country, it meets the Article 37 of our law on access, on universal access to information, which states that
janvier prochain,
universal
en Tunisie.
access to information is the right of each citizen, and we do hope that hopefully Parliament next year will create a special committee on the right to know, on the implementation of the law on universal access to information, and we can tell you that there are
L'instance d'accès à l'information.
Three major principles of this law. First of all is judicial one of access to information, because the information access in Tunisia is exercised by the court. I mean that courts are and magistrates are trying to ensure the access to information, both for civil society, for each particular citizen, and for the government, public authorities, government entities. So the court will take into consideration all the appeals, both by citizens and government entities, and each citizen has a right to appeal to the court if they not agree with the decisions on access to information. And by now we have received over 5,000 of complaints by by individuals, and I would say that over 500 of these appeals were filed by women, and 2,000 of complaints were filed by civic society entities. And I'm very pleased to say that in Tunisia we have a very strong civil society, civil activists. They can even sometimes change, I would say, a spirit of certain laws, because they have a right to even deliver their speeches in the parliament. I mean, say they are very, I would like to say that they are very influential, and this is our best culture example, I mean the best examples of the culture of civil society in Tunisia. And so also legal entities have filed over 1,800 of files, and I have mentioned that indeed we are taking actions according to this complaint. I mean, over 1,600 complaints
de l'instance.
Were resolved. I mean, we have taken positive decisions on them, and several hundreds of the complaints have been rejected. Why I'm giving you these statistics? Actually, the citizens, they are very keen, they are very interested in Tunisia, and they believe our magistrate, which thoroughly monitors the access to information, and I would say the office of the president was also one of the entities over which they have filed the complaints. It means that our law on access to information, first of all, fully complies with international norms and standards, and is intended to ensure transparency, accountability, and the universal access to information. I mean, the criteria which have been set forth by UNESCO, which is strongly monitored in our country. That's why both individuals and the legal entities, as well as civic society, trust us. And you know that the UNESCO is very keen on promoting universal access to information globally.
C'est-à-dire la consécration de
and the Tunisian law, we are especially keen on free access to education.
de la loi.
Because law,
Dans ce même
sorry,
de mettre l'accent sur d'autres
sound. The law is mostly focused on issue. Sorry, some problems with the sound connection. Sorry, some problems with connection.
Tel que
and once again, I would like to mention that in this law, sorry, some connection problems. We are having the simplified procedure. Like magistrate, we have simplified the system of complaints and appeals. For example, if any citizens or legal persons they experiencing issues to access certain information in the ministries, would I say, or anywhere, they can easily file their complaint. So for Tunisian citizens, it is they should not have some lawyer to file such a complaint or appeal. As per our law, they do not have to hire any lawyer. And if you have some issues, if applicant has some issues, for example, disabled person who cannot do it himself, then he can engage a lawyer to file a complaint or appeal instead of him on his behalf. And also this law in Tunisia was adopted to prevent this, a long period of consideration and reviewing complaints. That's why we're trying to promote this culture of expedited access to information. And therefore, since we have established our entity, we are trying to simplify the access to information, and also whatever information lawyers, journalists, or magistrates can get, we are trying to simplify this access procedure so that all the parts of society, all the people engaged in civic society should understand how important for us is to ensure universal access to information, which means it's not just the civil society can be engaged in developing certain laws, but also can be proactive in monitoring and enforcement of this law. So as a concluding remark, I know we are always running short out of time in such reputed events. I know that I should be brief, and I will be delivering my concluding remarks now. Talking talking about accessibility, talking about transparency, without these key elements in Tunisia, we cannot move forward with enforcement and implementation of this law. In Tunisia, we have a true democracy, and we think that true democracy is something internal which we are not going to change. This is in our mentality that we should have the principles of transparency, and we should not just comply with the principles, but we should also erect these principles in all of our laws, which requires us to work on this in long term and day by day, because sometimes we face this resistance both from individuals or from even legal entities who have not at the moment who understood how important the evolution for the society is, evolution towards democracy. And now a couple of minutes I would like to conclude with that. Let me end up with this, just with one my last para, that I'm trying to answer the question which people always ask me with this regard, very specific to Tunisia, by the way, question, why Tunisia is for institutional divide of two rights, a right to access to information and a right to privacy, because the other countries of the world, they merge two of these rights. So in Tunisia, we have two entities, one entity which ensures access to information, and the second entity which protects privacy. We decided to use two bodies, to engage two bodies, which will, first of all, one will be engaged in universal access to information, and the second one will be ensuring a privacy protection. In Tunisia, between 2014 to 2016, we indeed had two bodies for ensuring universal access to information and ensuring privacy. And frankly speaking, both of these entities, they had totally different legal mandate. And why we have opted for this? Because our country at this time was, and at the moment is still at the transition phase from revolution of 2011 till today. Therefore, we decided to have two different legal structures. One is for universal access to information and the second one for privacy protection, so that we will be able to ensure Tunisian citizens as well as government administration functionaries that they can optimize and the spirit, their coherence with the spirit of both access to information and protection of privacy. And each of these structures is focused on their specific direction, their dedicated one. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Now I understand why you smiled when I said the 8 minutes limit in the beginning. From Middle East, we go immediately to the Far East, and our next speaker is from Korea. Ms. Park is from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Korea. She is coordinator and of the Center of Excellence for Statistics on Crime and Criminal Justice in Asia and the Pacific. She's also a doctor, and I give you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I would like to first thank all the hosts and organizers for preparing this meaningful event. My name is Hyun-Jung Park. Before I start my presentation, let me introduce my center. Please prepare our slide. UNODC Coastal Center of Excellence opened in 2019 in Korea. Thank you. In 2019, our center is a joint project.
We have the slide.
Yeah. Thank you. Where is Our center is a joint project between UNODC and Statistics Korea to become a regional knowledge hub for crime and criminal justice statistics in crime and statistics in Asia and the Pacific region. Our main duties are to support member states in improving statistical methodologies and technical capabilities with respect to the production, collection, analysis, and dissemination of crime and criminal justice statistics. As we all know, reliable, transparent, and verified data only can be transferred into evidence for policymaking. For this reason, as a regional knowledge hub, we encourage member states to adapt and implement the international standards and standardized methodologies. UNODC is a custodian agency of 5 SDG goals regarding measuring and monitoring SDG indicators. The lack of data would be infringing on people's right to be informed, especially for achieving SDG 16 among the 5 goals. It is custodian of UNODC is working on 9 indicators. We are endeavoring to provide all kinds of information on data collection for these indicators to monitor SDG progress, such as definition, method of computation, data, or other issues to the member states to secure safe and transparent data production. UNODC conducts 5 global data collection to compile data from countries every year. The first 2 methods are focusing on drug-related data. The UNCTS, UNIAFQ, and GLOTIP are for crime and criminal justice data. UNODC and the national authorities review and validate the process of gathering data and the data itself for verifying the quality. After all these steps, UNODC published the data through the UNODC data portal for everyone to access and utilize data for better policies. Additionally, UNODC released diverse research products based on the data for everyone to use to have access to high-quality information focusing on Asia and the Pacific region. Our center published the regional snapshot series since last year. Now, I will introduce UNODC data collection activities as a way to tackle the lack of data. UNCTS and SDG 16 survey initiative help countries produce accountable and internationally comparable data in the field of crime and criminal justice in terms of monitoring SDGs. The UNCTS is a mandated annual questionnaire for the UN member states to manage the collection and dissemination of data in the field. Most SDG 16 indicators can be monitored with UNCTS data. This also requires a core set for identifying crime patterns and trends and accessing the functioning of the criminal justice system. The UNCTS is aligned with the crime categories of the International Classification of Crime for Statistical Purposes, so-called ICCS, as an international statistical standard for data collection, endorsed by UN Statistical Commission and Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice in 2015. Therefore, the UNCTS enables member states to collect valid and internationally comparable data on crime and criminal justice. Through this tool, member states can compile the national data on 8 SDG indicators, mainly under goals 16 and 11, using different sources such as surveys and administrative data. However, we are facing the daunting challenges of lack of data availability. According to the 2022 SDG report presented, less than 40% out of 193 countries only have internationally comparable data on goal 16. A further look shows that many countries are struggling to produce data, particularly through the surveys. Now we are move on to another data collection method for monitoring SDG 16. UNODC, UNDP, and OHCHR has decided to address these challenges together by developing one single methodology to collect data on SDG 16, the SDG 16 Survey Initiative. The initiative provides a comprehensive instrument that member states can use to produce survey-based data for national monitoring of SDG 16 and for designing evidence-based policies. As you can see from each step, SDG 16 Survey Initiative is a well-tested tool as it has undertaken several rounds of testing following desk review, expert consultation, cognitive testing, piloting, finalized cognitive testing and piloting. The joint team from UNODC, UNDP, and OHCHR finalized the whole package of the SDG 16 Survey Initiative. The 10 indicators can be measured through the SDG 16 Survey Initiative questionnaires divided into 9 modules. Besides the mandatory components of SDG indicators, the questionnaire also includes a careful, curated set of questions for further analysis. The modular approach allowed it to be integrated into regular household surveys as well as standalone surveys, and it could help lighten the cost burden of national authorities implement the surveys. The joint team experts are providing technical support and operational advice with verified resources. Today, I have introduced how UNODC has been measured SDGs and supporting member states to produce reliable, accountable data for peace, justice, and strong institutions to achieve SDG Goal 16. UNCTS and SDG 16 survey initiative are comprehensive instruments to support the member state producing high quality data. That's all I have prepared for today. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now we have another, some of us will have another linguistic challenge. We'll switch into the third language today, that will be Russian. Because I give the floor to Ms. Lamia Zinalova, who is head of the Department on Protection of the Right of Access to Information in the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights of the Republic. And women's rights. The Nalova will speak in Russian, but the presentation will be in English. So you can combine translation into English if necessary with the visual aid in English in a way. You have the floor, пожалуйста.
Да. Здравствуйте, уважаемые.
Good morning, the participants of today's events, my friends, colleagues. It is my pleasure to greet all of you on the behalf of Ombudsman of Azerbaijan and on my own behalf. And I would like to familiarize you with the situation which we face in our country and our work in this area. First of all, I would like to mention that sustainable development, according to UN's SDG, is one of the top priority of Republic of Azerbaijan. And as per the report on SDG for 2022, Azerbaijan has climbed 5 notches comparing to 2021, and Azerbaijan is ranked 50th at the moment as per SDG index, which makes Azerbaijan a leader in South Caucasian region. And SDG 16 is paid a special attention in our country, and we are undertaking significant efforts to ensure efficient access to information, and we are undertaking measures to improve mobile application to ensure access to various services. We are having various websites of the government entities, and of course the Institute of Ombudsman is also one of the most important mechanisms of achieving such sustainable results. And also let me take my clicker.
Значит, что касается законодательства.
Well, regarding the legislation, in the Constitution of Azerbaijan, everyone has right to access to, any person is entitled to apply directly or by his representative, the information owner, and choose the type of obtaining information. And in Azerbaijan, according to Article 50 of Constitution, everyone is free to legally seek, receive, import, produce, and disseminate any information. And of course, it is very important to know the law of Republic of Azerbaijan on Ombudsman, which has been enacted in 2005, and it was amended in 2011. And it is very also important to mention that the government of Azerbaijan ombudsman has a right also to exercise control over undertaking on constitutional undertakings on the rights to access to information. And also you can see that according to the law on ombudsman on Azerbaijan, the ombudsman has a right to review all the appeals on violation of the rights to access to information, and considering the ombudsman's mandate on approval to on checking the right to access to information. And according to the instruction of ombudsman, we have created our department on access to information, and our department has two subdivisions. One subdivision is for ensuring the right for accessing information, and we have also second subdivision, which is mostly for analysis and monitoring. So our subdivision on monitoring and analysis indeed undertakes significant work, and my colleague from Hungary was also right to mention that without having any metrics, without having any measurements, you cannot proceed and you cannot improve anything. Therefore, as soon as we have started our activities, we have started with monitoring. It was our first step. We have embraced over 100 of the major government bodies and municipal entities, and we have seen what are the issues which we are facing here. The issues related to the website, the issues related to information access, and as we have already mentioned, at that period, information was not granted in the full scope. I mean, this budget spending relating information was very restricted, and limited access was granting to it. Also, informational access, I mean, the e-format to access to information, I mean, we could have reached out to certain government entities only by filing e-request from their website. So according to the law, let me proceed.
Значит, что говорится в законе? Да. Я что-то не дружу с этим пультом. Да. Значит, в законе говорится, что производство и исполнение...
So according to our law, request for information is executed as soon as practicable, but not later than in 7 working days. And if additional time is required to prepare information, the deadline might be extended by another 7 days. But if information loses its efficiency, the request should be processed immediately, or if impracticable, not later than 24 hours. In cases of actual threat to life, health, and freedom of a person, information that is requested should be provided within 48 hours, which means that there's a certain deadline fixed to process the request for information. And of course, if these deadlines are violated, then individuals have a right to appeal to ombudsman, and ombudsman processes this application and the complaint within 10 days. And if some additional clarifications will be required for ombudsman, then plus 10 days can be added, and ombudsman will notify in written the applicant, and ombudsman will not process this request if there's a court decision which I would say prohibits disclosure of information, or if the person who has requested for information is violating some rules regarding disclosure. And of course, sorry, this has been mentioned. And this clicker runs faster than we expected. It looks like somebody else is also switching it. So Ombudsman will check while investigating circumstances of complaint related to the violation of the right to obtain information. The Commission will clarify compliance of the information holders with the following provisions of the law of Azerbaijan on access to information. And registration for a request for obtaining information, satisfaction of informational request within the period and method envisaged in the law, compliance of rejection to execute an information request, and so on, and also accurate and incomplete fulfillment of obligation to disclose public information. And as soon as this law on information was adopted, the government entities, each of them have been instructed to create special departments which are in charge to ensure access to information and processing requests for information by individuals or other entities. And if the entity has, some entities still have not created such a department, and after Ombudsman addressed this entity, the government body should provide information on taken actions within 10 days. If information has not been submitted, then Ombudsman addresses to the superior entity, and according to presidential decree in Azerbaijan, all the persons in charge for developing protocols on administrative offenses, which are
лица. Какие статьи? О чем там говорится в этих статьях? Это нарушение правил использования информационных ресурсов, противозаконное ограничение предоставления информации об окружающей среде, уклонение от рассмотрения по существу запроса о раскрытии секретной информации, нарушение законодательства о праве на получение информации, нету. Ну, перевод здесь есть, в принципе, на английский. Да, я вот из этих, для этого и сделала это. Да, значит, вот по этим статьям омбудсмен имеет право составлять протокол и передавать его в суд, то есть привлекать должностное лицо вот при нарушении прав журналистов, при нарушении законодательства о праве на получение информации, а также препятствовании законной деятельности омбудсмена, он имеет право составлять протокол и передавать его в районные суды. Значит, хотелось...
And sorry, connection has been restored. We should also mention that we are using this practice and we are also, I would say, very proactively engaged, and we have a lot of information holders who have been brought to administrative liabilities, and they are paying significant amount of penalties, which are totaling up to 2,000 of USD if they're not providing information in time, or if they're not providing the complete, the comprehensive scope of information. So this is a new development which has been introduced last year since our division has been created, and also we are having this, I would say, public awareness raising affairs, because we have understood what is the issue. We have managed to reveal what is the issue, because people were not aware. Neither citizens nor information holders. People do not know their rights, that they can address, that they can appeal to certain entities if their right to know is violated, the right to access to information. And therefore, I should also mention that we are not just a mechanism to provide, to protect these rights, but also we are the information holders. And of course, we are also getting the requests for information, and we are closely copying. We are, of course, responding these requests, and the Ombudsman also has a right to deliver a speech and deliver a report to Parliament once a year. Sorry, some patience required, I guess. And also our department also has prepared information to raise public awareness. This clicker is not working, but still, okay, we can show it to you also that our department published these leaflets regarding rights to have information, and one of them for individuals and for information holders. And also, I would like to mention that when the rights are violated very often. Rights of the vulnerable categories of marginalized groups like disabled people, refugees. I would say that for over 30 years, Azerbaijan had the issue with Karabakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, and 20% of our territory has been occupied by Armenia, and we had over 1 million of refugees, and we were supposed to protect their rights in 2020 after we have managed to set free the territory of Karabakh. The refugees had an opportunity to get back to their homes, but the issue is that these areas, these lands, there is still has bombs, underground bombs. So we are working on rehabilitating this territory. It is very important for us to reach, to rehabilitate this area to achieve SDG. We have a lot of migrants from Ukraine. For them, we have also have these leaflets in Ukrainian, Russian, English, Ukrainian, and Azerbaijani languages. So we are trying to cope with this work. Moreover, in 14 cities and districts in Azerbaijan, we had public awareness raising campaigns, which I also would like to mention. And international cooperation is very important for us. Thank you so much for inviting me to deliver my speech here, because we had very fruitful meetings with our colleagues from different countries, so that I could get a lot of information on best practices which we can learn more and which we can apply in a broader scope. Thank you so much for UNESCO and the government of Uzbekistan for granting us such opportunities. Thank you so much for your kind attention, dear colleagues.
Спасибо, госпожа Зейналова. У нас есть немножко времени на...
Thank you so much, Madam Zeynalova.
Any questions? Let's switch into English for the rest of the session, at least. Are there any questions? Helen first, please. The mic is here. The mic is here. Here is the mic.
Thanks very much. This is measurement of access to information is super important. So this was a really interesting panel. We clearly have a lot more work to do on monitoring of access to information. What I felt was perhaps slightly missing, although Julia mentioned it a little bit in Hungary, was actually not just the data on the numbers of requests and the numbers of appeals, but actually an evaluation of which kinds of information is available and which is not. So that's a comment from me, but I do have a question. And my question is for Ms. Park. Because obviously, one of the most important types of information right now that should be made public is the information we need to evaluate all the Sustainable Development Goals. And what I was wondering in your research, maybe you said it, but it wasn't clear to me, is do you just evaluate the collection of this data, or do you also look at whether that data, for example, the crime statistics, is made public at the national level? Because I know in my research in Europe, we looked at data on gender indicators, and we found that a lot of data, including crime data, is often not published disaggregated by gender. Even if it exists, it's not public. So I wonder to what extent you looked at that, and whether perhaps for future discussions we could focus maybe a bit more on, actually, let's look at different kinds of information and ask ourselves, is it public or not? But I'll leave the question there for now. Thanks. Shall I pass the mic to Liliane?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Should we?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for your question. In our office, we have some focal point all over the world. So for UNCTS data for crime and criminal justice crime trend and operation data, in that case, every year we we distribute the questionnaires, and then we collect the data through the focal point. The focal point, they have also process to evaluate the data is valid or reliable one or not, and also it is important that is based on the official statistics. It means that is very qualified data. So the UNCTS one is the I believe that is the it is on the basis of the quality control each country. So, but the next one is that is new one. We developed that one for 2 years. So we conducted the pilot process, and then I think we will conduct the real survey from this year. So yeah, I also you mentioned very key point. So we will make sure the valid and reliable data to group. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Was a second question? Because I don't see. Yes, please.
I think that is it.
Sorry.
Okay. Actually, every country presented their ways of collect data, and that it's very important. And the national level. I think that. And this is very important for all the countries at the national level. But I have questions after that. So, what will be the next steps? Okay, thank you. What will be the next steps for all the authorities after you got your results? And the second one, okay, so if in the first exercise, did you detect any other data that you could measure in order to advance in maybe in gender or vulnerable groups? You know, maybe if you measure another kind of things, you can improve the policies in another ways that could be better. It would be all. Thank you.
Yes, please answer. The question is to Ms. Park, right?
Start then. Yeah, our project is still ongoing. It's going to be ended in December, but we have already formulated our proposals to the decision maker, including some kind of modification in the law. And we are quite successful because last week, partly because of the project, partly because of the pressure of the European Union, European Commission, our law was modified and there is no more reimbursement fee for workforce. So that is something, and the government is going to make a central registry for all contracts from 5 million forints, which is already in the law, in the general publication scheme, but not in a central place. So these are two achievements we have already reached. And of course, decisions concerning our activity shall be made for improvement, for more awareness raising, and these feedbacks coming from the public authorities, from the obligated persons in their complaints must be also listened to, and the necessary compliance must be reached somehow.
Thank you. Please,
but they have to.
Thank you for questioning. Yeah, for our office and UN Women's, also we had collaborated to develop some new initiative for femicide framework. So it is endorsed in this May by UN Statistical Commission. So we UNODC has to provide. We are exploring which country can be participate as a pilot country to measure the femicide situation. So yeah, we are now in the process of exploring the reliable country, and then we to collaborate the national counterpart and our other NGOs or some other peoples. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Translation will follow me or not, parce que j'ai parlé en bon, en Tunisie, cette nouvelle culture de transparence et d'accès à l'information, c'est une,
this new culture of access to information. This is a new culture. It is a totally new culture which is developing in Tunisia, and which this culture we are trying to promote it within 5 years. I mean, within these 5 years, as a law on universal access to information has been adopted in 2016, and I would say that there are a lot of work to do for us to promote universal access to information and raising public awareness and making the disseminations of the text of this new law available to public, especially changing the mentality of civil servants in Tunisia, because we have a lot of meetings with them and we face the resistance from them. They do not want to change their mentality. They want to withhold this information. They do not want to become more open and transparent towards civilians. And they always asking, why do you need this information? Why do you need this document? And of course, this strongly contradicts the targets which we are setting for ourselves, the aims which we set for ourselves on this law, which is openness, transparency, and opening access to information to population, to so the public functionaries in Tunisia, they should understand this law. They should be more free in adopting this law and applying this law in practice. It means that we have a lot of work to do in the future, and this will require a lot of efforts. I would say not just efforts, but also funds, the human resources to be engaged in our entity on access to information. At the moment, we have only 34 staff members plus administrative staff. I mean that we do not have so many staff members to help us, and still we're always on our way all across the country to ensure the access to information in a region. I mean, our major offers is in Tunisia, in the capital city, but we do not have any regional offices, which means that we always travel all across the country, and it implies a lot of money, it implies a lot of human resources, a lot of trainers to travel all across the country and train the government officials on how should they disclose information, how should they process public requests to information. And of course, we together with our international partners, UNESCO and other international partners, we are trying to promote this law on universal access to information, which was adopted in Tunisia in 2016, and we are also closely cooperating with them on our travels all across the country, disseminating the contents and raising awareness on our law on access to information and our National Day on universal access to information. We are closely partnering with UNESCO and international donors. And of course, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the law is not just something, the document which should be developed or the document which should be enforced. Each of the article of the law should also be applied. Otherwise, this law has no use for us. The access towards information, this ecosystem of this law, I would say. When I say ecosystem, I mean some statutory, some legal frameworks, some regulatory frameworks, and some additional documents to this law, which will simplify and ease the access to information. So for us to be able to efficiently apply the law, we should ensure the efficient work of this law, the efficient implementation of law. So it's not just a law which is required, we also need to have some supplementary documents which will facilitate the practical application of the law. And together with our partners, international donors, we are working on improving this law, and we will hope that we will succeed in this. Thank you so much.
One delay after another will just ruin your trip tomorrow or anything else. Therefore, I apologize. You know the speakers. There will be a 20-minute coffee break now. The coffee break is hidden in the bar. If you go to the right and then again to the right in the gallery, you'll hit the bar, enter the door, coffee is there, and enjoy the break. And I feel that I just want to thank the panel for their great wish to share their experience, first of all, and excellent presentation.